I'm going to talk with you about how to write the 55-word short story and how to take that knowledge and apply it to a tool we'll be using called Hypothesis. It's what's known as a social annotation tool, and I'll explain that in a separate screencast. But for right now, let's share the screen here and go to our assignment for the week. And there's a reading assignment, and there's defining a short story. That's a discussion board. Follow the directions there carefully. There's our creative piece, the 55-word short story, and that's what I'm going to talk mostly about. And then there's the social annotation tool right here, and here's the screencast on how to use that tool. Okay, so watch this first down here, the screencast, and then do the social annotation. Now, when you write a 55-word short story, there are rules. And there are short story rules as well. They're not entirely strict, but they're way stricter than poetry. I mean, it's easier to tell what's a short story and what's not than it is to say what's a poem and what's not. In this case, we're going to be very, very strict about it, and a short story is going to have 4 elements. So when you write your short story, it's going to have 4 elements. When you think about short stories like the one at the end of the week here is going to be A Clean, Well-Lighted Place by Ernest Hemingway, then you're going to think of it in terms of these 4 elements. So the first item, the first rule is not here, but should be, is that we're talking about fiction, not essays or poems. A lot of people have a hard time getting that straight, no doubt, because they have a hard time believing that writing something so short is really possible. It's totally possible. Now, writing a great short story, well, that takes skill. Sometimes it takes luck. Sometimes it's dumb luck. But everybody can write a short story. A lot of times what happens, though, is you only end up with part of the story. Sometimes the character ends up stranded in a situation going nowhere. I can't tell you how many are like that. For example, you write a story about your characters in a basketball game, and it's not enough of a conflict. There's nothing there for anybody to learn. It's just a basketball game. That's all it is. That's to win the state championship. Big deal. What did anybody learn from it? I mean, I'm not trying to diminish the accomplishment of something like that, but as far as the short story is concerned, it's irrelevant. It's what you learn that's important. So there are 4 parts. And the story is only a story if it contains the following 4 elements. And you can read that here: setting, characters, conflict, and resolution. Plus, it can only be 55 words long for our particular purposes here. And the title doesn't count in the 55 words, but it can't be more than 7 words long. These aren't my rules. These are set up by other people, and I just think they're useful. All stories have to be happening someplace, which means they have to have a setting of some kind, even if it's the other side of the universe. Sometimes the setting's implied. The first one, the story of the setting is not really said exactly, but it's present. You need a character or characters, and those characters can have infinite variation. People, animals, clouds, microbes, viruses, anything. There has to be a conflict, and by conflict, we just mean that in the course of the story, something has to happen, right? And the conflict leads to the outcome of the story known as a resolution. And it doesn't mean that there has to be a moral to the story. I mean, it could be, but it doesn't have to be. Or even, it doesn't even mean that the conflict has to be resolved. It may or may not be. If part of it might be resolved, and there's a larger conflict later on. But what the resolution does mean is that when the story ends, someone has to have learned something. Now, here's a few. One, you can write about anything, but you can't use more than 55 words. You can use fewer if you want to. It's like, what exactly is a word? You got 55 words. What's a word? Well, if it's in a dictionary, it's a word. I'm not going to be too picky about, you trying to get close to 55 words and doing things like hyphenating things that aren't usually whatever you do is fine. But do the best you can with this. And of course, this analytical tool for analyzing stuff is going to be really handy when we look at an example of 55-word short story. And remember, here's some examples. Find examples of short stories here. Got it? Here's some here, and here. Especially this one, 55fiction.org. Let me know if these links are broken in any way. All right, now let me switch, and let me stop this share, and we'll switch over to an example. Okay. So, I'm just going to mark on here things like, okay, less than 7 words. Yes. Intriguing? Yeah, it helps the reader out a little bit. That's a good title. Does it have characters? Yes. One of them is M. You see down here, Emmett. The other one is Ty. Who's the first one speaking? Ty. Ty. Emmett. Ty. I'm going to read this now. Can you keep a secret, Em? Sure. Blood? Sure. There's a title. Cool, huh? Look, Ty. Oh, I forgot, Doctor. Ever since you left the holler, you's better than us kinfolk in our ways. Emmett sighed, then extended his palm. He winced as his brother's blade grew red. What secret? Blood trickled from between their thumbs. I got AIDS, man. And that's it. That's 55 words or fewer. And got characters, right? It's got a setting, and it's what I would call, wow. Okay, the holler, kinfolk. It's like it's in the mountains. Does it have a conflict? Yes. There's big conflict. Not the one at the end, at least for sure. But first example is between brothers. And that's rough. The second one is the one brother, Emmett, took off, left the mountains, left Ty behind, left family behind, and became a doctor. It's kind of like he betrayed them. Then there's the conflict of, a blood oath, right? You don't go into a blood oath easily. It's not just like a handshake. A handshake with blood, okay? And then, of course, at the conclusion there's the ultimate conflict of his brother having given the other brother AIDS. Now, this is before This story was written when age was more of a death sentence than it is now. It's not so much now. You can survive age pretty well if you have good medical care. So that's the conflict, and what's the resolution? Well, it's implied, but I think it's that Emmett, now he's got to stay in the mountains with his family. He's got to stick with them. Now, I don't, that might be an example of wishful thinking, but still, everything is in here. It's all in here. It's a great example of a 55-word short story. It's a great example of a short story. What we're going to look at is a clean, well-lighted place, but we're going to look at that inside of the hypothesis tool. So watch the screencast before you go in. There will also be instructions inside of the screencast, inside of hypothesis as well, as a page note. So look for it there as well. Thanks a bunch, everybody. Sorry I missed class, but I think this will do.